Good evening, Zimbabwe. Welcome to Live Talk. We are coming to you live from Studio 7 at the Voice of America on Friday, October the 21st, 2022. I am Tungamili Nkomao. Tonight, we are talking about the political violence that fled in Matobo and in Insizwa districts, Matabeleland South, earlier this week, ahead of tomorrow's by-elections. The Opposition Citizens Coalition for Change, or CCC, alleges that its members were beaten up by suspected ruling ZANU-PF supporters, leading to the hospitalization of many, including Member of Parliament for Bulawayo Metro, Honorable Jasmine Tofa, who sustained broken hands in the attack. And with villagers going to the polls to pick new councillors in Matobo's Ward 2 and in Insizwa's Ward 4 tomorrow, the CCC is alleging that tensions are still high in the two districts, thereby erasing any chances of fair and free elections. But the ruling ZANU-PF, which counter-alleges that the violence was aimed at its members, says the situation is conducive for the polls tomorrow, adding the opposition is just scared of imminent defeat. The violence in the two districts has triggered concerns about next year's general elections, with the opposition and human rights activists saying ZANU-PF is prepared to deploy all forms of violence to deal with CCC caretaker leader Nelson Chamisa, whom they say presents a serious challenge to President Emmerson Mnangagwa of ZANU-PF. Zimbabwe human rights campaigners attending a symposium of the African Commission for Human and People's Rights currently underway in Banjul, the Gambia, say they will raise the issue of violence in Matobo and in Insizwa and the general human rights situation, which they say is on the increase ahead of next year's elections. Those attending include officials of the Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights, and the Zimbabwe Human Rights NGO Forum, which say it will also raise the issue of incarcerated CCC members of Parliament, Job Sikala and Godfrey Sitole, as well as 14 other opposition activists who have been languishing in a remand prison for the past 4 months after they were arrested on allegations of fomenting political violence in Nyatsime. Lichona njani Zulukandaba siyahlangana kuhlelo lwe-Live Talk. Lamhlanje sixoxa ngodaba lokufuthelana okubikwa lokhe kukhona e-Insizwa laseMatobo kulandela udlakela oluqhamuke kulezi zigaba phambilini kokhetho lwe-council by-elections oluzakwenziwa kusasa. Ukhetho lolu ngolokudinga ukhansila ka-Ward 4 e-Insizwa laku-Ward 2 eMatobo. Abebandla eliphikisayo ele-CCC bathi amalunga abo achaywe ngabasekeli be-ZANU-PF alimala kakubi kulezi zigaba ngesikhathi ekhankasela lolu khetho ngesonto langoMvulo. Kodwa abe-ZANU-PF labo bathi bachayiwe. Sikhuluma nje ibandla le-CCC lithi kulokufuthelana okukhulu ezigabeni zombili. Ngokunjalo, lithi kaliboni ukhetho lwakusasa lusiba ngolukhululekileyo. Konke lokhu kwenzakala ngesikhathi inhlanganiso ezizimeleyo zisithi zizakhuluma ngodaba lokwephulwa kwamalungelo oluntu eZimbabwe emhlanganweni we-African Commission for Human and People's Rights oqale izolo eBanjul kwele the Gambia. Kwaziwa iva tereri nasi muchirongwa che Live Talk tiri kutarisa nyaya yemirishonga yakaitika ku Insizwa nekumatobo kuMatabeleland South pakutanga pesondo rino pamberi pesarudzo dzekutsvaga makhanzura enzvimbo idzi zichaitwa mangwana. Bato reCCC rinoti nhengo dzaro dzakarohwa zvakaipisisa uye dzimwe dzacho dziri muzvipatara. Asi veZANU-PF vanoti nhengo dzavo dzakarohwawo nenhengo dzeCCC. Bato reCCC rinoti vanhu munzvimbo idzi vava kutya kunovhota mangwana zvichitevera mhirizhonga iyi. Ukuwo vemasangano anorwira kodzero dzevanhu anosanganisira reZimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights nereZimbabwe Human Rights NGO Forum vanoti vachataura nenyaya yemhirizhonga iyi uye kutyorwa kwekodzero dzevanhu muZimbabwe kumusangano weAfrican Commission for Human and People's Rights uyo wakatanga nezuro kuBanjul, the Gambia. And we begin our show tonight with opposition CCC official in North America, Mr. Tim Muringai, joining us via Skype from the great state of Ohio. Mr. Muringai, good evening and welcome to Live Talk.
Thank you, Mr. Nkomo.
By-elections are getting underway in Matobo and in Siza tomorrow amid these lingering tensions following the violence on Sunday and Monday. What are you expecting as the CCC?
We're expecting nothing more than victory, but we know that ZANU-PF, like we have said previously, and the party members on the ground and our interim spokesperson spoke yesterday eloquently that ZANU-PF has nothing to offer but violence, but we expect total victory tomorrow despite all these things.
Kodwa abebandla leZANU-PF baba Muringai ngoba sike sakhuluma le candidate yenu eyinsiza isithi kulokufuthelana okukhulu okulakho ukuphazamisa abantu okuza besabisa mhlawumbe bagcine bengasayi kuyavota kumbe okungenza bavotele iZANU-PF. Kodwa yona iZANU-PF ithi cha akula kufuthelana okukhona umumo ulungele ukuthi kube lokhetho kusasa njalo ithi abantu bazavota bekhululekile.
Anti sakubona last week ngesonto abantu bedutshulwa bephonga uzihambela becampaigna. So mayizani ikhuluma ukuthi akula zakufuthelana hayi lathi siyakwazi ukuthi ngamanga ngoba abalungu bathi yona a picture says 1,000 words. Ma udubula uchaya abantu izimota zabulawa amawindi abantu abadala bakhululwa isigqoko and all that. Siyabona ukuthi izanu yona le esiphelelwe ngama-ideas ifuna ukuforce abantu ukuthi ibayethusele ukuthi babavotele.
Siyabonga Muringai, and please do stay on the line as we welcome Mr. Masimba Mavaza, a ZANU-PF official in the United Kingdom, but currently in Zimbabwe. Good evening, Mr. Mavaza. Tinoku gamuchirai muchirongwa.
Good evening,
aiwa tinofara kana muchifara wo itipinde munyaya iri mudariro nhasi kuchaitwa sarudzo kuinsiza nekumatovo mangwana zvichitevera mhirizhonga yakaitika nemusi wesondo nemusi wemuvhuro uye bato reCCC riri kuti rakarohwa nenhengo dzenyu. On top of that iri kuti CCC pachine kutya vanhu vari kutya kunovhota mangwana kana kuti vava kutya kuvhotera CCC zvichitevera mhirizhonga iyi. Muri kuti chione nyaya iyi?
Chekutanga vangu ndechekuti pakaungana vanhu panongoitwa mhirizhonga. Vanhu vakaita mhirizhonga vanenge vaungana hapana anenge avatuma vanhu vangoita musaringa sevanhu vasangana mumugwagwa. Chepiri dambudziko rakaitika kuMartinot harisi dambudziko rekuti yakatuma ZANU-PF yakatuma vanhu veZANU-PF sekuti zvavamboita vangomo kuti we are the most peaceful people on earth. Aitofamba murunyararo vakadenwa nenhendo shoma dzetriple C ZANU-PF vakangogona kungozvita zvibhadhara zvavaipiwa mukuzvitana imomo vakabvaruka hembe vakuchema ndovarova asi hakuna akakubanisha kurova vanhu and hatingarove vanhu nokuti toona kuti vativhoteri saka elections are going on hakuna anorohwa kuballot box and kana pane munhu anofunga kuti ZANU-PF inviolent yakarova munhu you can vote us out more if they want, but we are going to win. Why? Because vanhu vanozviziva kuti vanhu vetriple C, MDC nemitupo yavo yese yavanayo vane tsika yekunyeba kana takuenda kuma-elections, vane tsika yekuchema yatingati a-victim card. We cannot survive, we cannot have a country. Kana muri kuenda kumusangano, muri kuenda kuparty, muri kuenda kuvote, hamusi kuenda kuchurch, it's politics. Saka ukatsikwa ukanzi sorry ngatenderere mberi hatikabva tapfugama tonamata zuva rese nekuti munhu hwana angotsikwa akunyeba kuti handitsikwe ndiri wetriple C. Saka hatidi kutota kuti chinyangadza zita renyika nezita repati yedu nekuda kwevanhu vanotinyebera kuti varohwa. Hakuna mhirizhonga yakaitsikwa. Vanhu vanenge vangonetsana mumugwagwa, vanhu vanorwa, havana kutungwa neZANU-PF. Uyezve makana kungofunga vangoona kuti munhu andarohwa hembe akabvaruka, saka akangorohwa hembe.
Asi vamavaza mhirizhonga yakaitika uyezve vanhu vakarohwa vanosanganisira mumiriri webulawayo metro kudare reparamende amai Jasmine Tofa, avo vakadambuka kana kuti vakadambuka maoko ese kutaura kuno vanga vari muchipatara meno kuti vachiri muchipatara. Asi we have seen those injuries. We have seen several triple C members with various injuries zvichitevera mhirizhonga iyoyo. Saka we cannot say kuti manyepo kuti pane vanhu vakarohwa.
Chikashova chinoremera vatenzi vebasa. Vakomana vanhu vetriple C vakadonha vaakutidza vanhu vakuuya kuti vabvunze kuti ko hondo yatangira papi, muitai campaign yenyu, we are doing our campaign peacefully and do yours. In the process yekutidza nekusandidzirana ndopa vakakuwara vakadonha, havana kurohwa, and ma-injuries are not consistent with an assault, they are consistent with falling. Semunhu akura nesimba shoma exercise haipo, mapfupa anotyoka ukadonha.
Komotokari dzakaiswa jecha mumainjini.
Aiwa, uku kunenge vakutaura kwekungochema kwetriple C, vanzwa nekuchema. Ukanzwa matauriro anga triple C kuti kune violence muZimbabwe, ungatofunga kuti tiri kuhondo. Hakuna kana zvakadaro. It's just a skirmishes, the few skirmishes dzakaitika dzikapera. Saka hatina dambudziko. It never happened in that way.
Okay, thank you there, Mr. Mavaza, and please do stay on the line. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. Being Taylor pause here. Be careful, but my producers are not ready with that. We have our third guest on the line, but before I introduce him, let's go back to Ubaba Uti Muringai. Muringai murikunzwa zviri kutaurwa navamavaza, hanzi muri kunyepa stereka pana mhirizhonga yakaitika avo vakatsemuka hanzi vakadonha.
PF, because into is to tell the truth. It's always important to tell the truth. So how do they explain windows being broken from the triple C members who were just campaigning peacefully? How do they block roads, which is on video? You see, if Mr. Mavaza saw the videos, I think he will come up with another explanation. So the issue right now in Zimbabwe, like we have said before, is to accept that there's a problem in Zimbabwe. And we saw, like you have eloquently said, that MP for Bulawayo Metro, Honorable Tofa, has both broken arms and she's just had surgery. Last night in Churumanzi, people were being intimidated. Today, we've heard reports that people in Grue have been told that they're not going to get fertilizer. So ZANU-PF, they have already told us before, when Mugabe was still their leader, that they have PhDs in violence. It's nothing new. So Mr. Mabaza is not being honest and truthful. We know that violence is the way that they operate because they have no solution to the crisis on the ground.
We are now joined by our third guest, that's human rights lawyer Kennedy Masiye. Masiye tino kugamuchirai muchirongwa.
Ndotenda nokundiunza pachirongwa chenyu.
Thank you so much. And by the way, Mr. Masiye is joining us from the great state of Texas here in the United States. Vamasiye tukona kuti vamwe venyu vanorwira kodzero dzevanhu veZimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights, veZimbabwe Human Rights NGO Forum vari kumusangano wekodzero dzevanhu weAfrican Commission for Human and People's Rights uyo akatanga nezuro kuBanjul, the Gambia. Vari kuti vachange vachikurukura vachataura nenyaya yemhirizhonga yeZimbabwe uye kutyorwa kwekodzero dzevanhu kwavanoti kuri kuitwa nehurumende yavaMnangagwa. Pane zvamuri kuona zvichiitika here? Pane matanho amuri kuona achitorwa neAfrican Union kana vakataura nenyaya vekuZimbabwe?
Tinoona kuti kutaura kwenyaya yeviolence zvinochinja maonero evanhu variko kumusangano uyu kuti vanyatsokuona chokwadi yezvinhu zviri kuitika muZimbabwe kuti violence iya yatanga zvekare takunangana nemaelections kudai. Tinoziva kuti African Union nana SADC namapato ariko kumusangano uyu mapato kuti hurumende dziri chizouyawo kuzoongorora maelections kuZimbabwe. Saka zvinhu zvakanaka kuti nyaya iyi itaurwe kuti kana ivo vehurumende yeZimbabwe variko kumusangano uyu vaoneswewo kuti zvavari kuita kana kuti the lack of protection yevanhu vari kukambena kunofanwa kuongororwa ende kunofanwa kuti vaprotecte marights evanhu vachienderana nebumbiro remutemo riri muZimbabwe.
And how would you characterize the human rights situation in Zimbabwe currently, Mr. Masiye?
The human rights situation in Zimbabwe has deteriorated seriously. And the main cause of concern is that ZANU-PF or the government continues to perpetuate impunity. When violence happens, we see that government officials, ZANU-PF members, they seem to condone violence. They are not seen to be condemning violence, even though they want to hide that these are isolated cases of violence. But we have seen that there's a pattern that has developed since last year. We've seen it in February, in March, when the CCC started. The violence is now escalating, and this is a very cause of concern. And it's likely that probably we're going to see a high level of violence like never seen before if this sort of violence is not kept right now.
Ndidzokere kuna Masimba Mavaza veZANU-PF. Mr. Mavaza, there is a growing concern that the police in Zimbabwe are biased towards ZANU-PF, and those raising this concern say that if indeed the CCC was involved in the violence in Matabeleland South, kutaura kunoku, the culprits would have been arrested, just like what happened to Job Scala and others, not to say that they are guilty of any crime. Saka vari kuti vamwe the fact kuti mapurisa hapana munhu ati asungwa kuMatabeleland South, it simply means kuti ZANU-PF were the perpetrators in this violence, because dai kuri veCCC dai vakatosungwa kudhara. How do you respond?
You see, whoever is saying that, they need some treatment. The first thing is there has been some skirmishes, not violence as we are calling it. And number two, the police work on investigations. They are investigating on what happened, who are the perpetrators, and they will be arrested. Now, the problem with the CCC is that when the police become arrest quickly, you complain quickly. George Scala and his crew made noise, killed people, destroyed houses in Tunisia. When they were arrested, they are now crying and say it's political. When the police take time to arrest, take time to investigate, they now say, why are you not arresting? That means they are very better. No, the police don't work on the whim of a party. The police don't work on the whim of ZANU-PF. The police work on the whim of the police. They are the police. They are not a party. Again, I want you to understand one thing. ZANU-PF is a political party, but it is the ruling party. So the ruling party is the government, and the government has got the assets which it uses. That includes the police, the army, and everything. They are not used by ZANU-PF as a party. They are used by a ruling governing party. So it is bad news that we are the ruling party, and we have those powers. But we do not abuse. We cannot beat one or two women out there. We can beat the world if we want to, but we are not a violent party. Now, the second point, before anyway, let me respond to Advocate Masia. Firstly, let not Masia hide on the being a human rights lawyer. Masia is the chairperson of CCC in Texas. So he's talking there as CCC. So whatever nonsense he has been saying and accusing ZANU-PF of being violent, he's not talking as a lawyer because the lawyers don't accuse without evidence. He was talking as a CCC chairman, and CCC has no structure. I don't even know what is the chairing. Because it has no party, has no structure, there's no leadership, there's nothing but violent thugs who then call themselves chairpersons wherever they are. The only people with positions in CCC is Chamisa and Mahere. Everybody else, Chamisa says they are called citizens. So that citizen called Masia, he must not lie just to talk as a lawyer. He's talking as a CCC member, and he must see the difference between a lie and the truth.
Okay, we will give Mr. Masia. I will give Mr. Masia a chance to respond, but we invited him here as a human rights lawyer. Just like yourself, you wear many hats. Munombotaura as an analyst, Munombotaura semuno as ZANU-PF. Saga, Panama parameters, Panama, those differences. But Mr. Masia will respond for himself. But for now, Igahlenge Baba Muringai. Namzara Muringai, we are Muzu Yakulumuba Mabaza. We are insisting to Takvanga violence in Caesar. Utogobe Kona, Namaskimishes. I don't know how you differentiate between the two.
So I think that's when we'll have a solution. But I think because he's in Zimbabwe, he's speaking for his supper. So he'll never tell you the truth, which is number one. Number two, his own commissar, or whoever they call him, Umuda Ncube, he's on record saying that the headmen in Chirumanzi have sold out, so they will face some consequences. So I don't know which world he lives in, Mr. Mawaza. He's trying to be a ZANU-PF political analyst. Then he comes to the CCC and he says, Mr. Masia is not who he's saying he is. And then he comes and he says, oh, no, there's no violence. So, you cannot believe somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about when there's evidence that we can all see. I think he should just stick with the ZANU-PF narrative and not try to qualify people's positions and where they belong. Thank you.
Siabonga, for those that have just joined us, please note, we are streaming live on our Facebook pages, VOA Shona, VOA Studio 7, and VOA Ndebele. We are also live on YouTube at VOA Zimbabwe. And of course, there's no live talk without the listener input. Silomlalele cingweni tine mtereri. Good evening, caller.
Yebo baba.
Ilinjani?
Siyaphila ninjani?
Hayi siyaphila. Sungenile kuhlelo sikhuluma ngodaba lodlakela akusiphi umbono wakho?
Baba kodlakela siyakhala kakhulu ngento eyenziwa yiZANU. Siyakhala kakhulu ukuthi kambe kuzabe yizwe linjani njalo nje iZANU ihlukumeza abantu. Kambe siyabe sisezweni ngelinjani izwe okungafuni ukuthi abantu senze into ngokukhululeka. asikhululeke ukuhambeni asikhululeki akufuzanga sikhuluma ukuthi sithanda yiphi party asinto right ezwa izani ukuthi bangabantu abanjani abangakuboniyo inkokhelo ezinjani ezingakuboniyo konke lokho kanti into okuthiwa yi-free and fair yini kahle kahle kufuze kwenziwe njani angithi kumele umuntu azikhethele into oyithandayo pho ngoba laphana kakulanto oyithandayo abantu bachayiwe balimele abantu basezibhedlela manje njengoba besezibhedlela kuthiwani ngalokho izanu kayingeniyo kambe ireport amanga since abantu lokho yaqala kudala ngekuku round la manje futhi sokuyi-triple C semkuku round futhi why umongameli engakhuzi
hayi siyabonga ukungena uhlelo baba
siyabonga nathi ba
ngumlaleli liyamuzwa uyasikhulumela lapho vama CND zokere kwamuri ndo fungamu noda ku respond to what Mr. Mavaza was saying about you.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't think I'm going to respond to Mr. Mavaza. He comes to me as someone who's not honest and is not decent. So therefore, whatever he said about me does not deserve the decency of a response. But I'm going to talk about the issue that is at hand right now. Political violence is bad for governance. A political violence that not sure that Zimbabwe is a democratic country. And if this issue is not dealt with, surely a lot of people are going to lose their lives and things are not going to look good. The police need to investigate these cases thoroughly, and the government, through ZANU-PF, does not need to interfere with the investigations from the police. So we need an independent police to investigate these political violence skirmishes. We need those who have perpetrated political violence to be arrested and brought before the courts of law and have their day in court, so that people can have confidence, people can feel safe as they go to the ballots. We don't want to come here on public shows through the media and start throwing mud at each other when people are suffering back home. People are suffering, they are crying out loud that we need peace so that we can vote for political parties of their choices, which is a constitutional right. So I'm not going to respond to Mr. Mavaza on the personal attacks, but I'm just going to advise him to please consider people's lives in Zimbabwe and not politic with people's lives at the expense of expedience.
Considering the many precedents that are out there, Mr. Masie, of the way the police deal with Triple C members or the opposition. We know of a man who threatened Mr. Chamisa publicly, as ZANU-PF member who said Chamisa must be killed. I believe nothing has happened to him to date, up to now. Murikuona erepachita difference this time around. Maybe the police tichimaona vachisunga vanhu vakaroa vanhu kuinsiza nekumatopo.
Well, tichiona nezviri kuitika iko zvino toona senge hapana chingachinje kana pakaramba pachiita interference yeZANU-PF. Tinoona kuti Bongeni Ncube akakourawo kukwekwe. And to date hatisataona munhu atasungirwa nyaya iyoyo. Kuinsiza takaona vanhu vachirohwa zvekare. Tikuona zvekare hapana chaitwa nemapurisa. Tikada kutasasa mashure uko tine nyaya dzakawanda dzakaitika dzevanhu vakaurawa nenyaya dzemhirizhonga, kusanganisira vanhu vakaita sana Tundra Ndira kudhara, but hapana kana doketi kana munhu akambosungwa. Saka nezvatikuona zvichiitika izvi tinoona senge ZANU-PF iri kuita dig deep into culture yavo yeviolence isina kunakira.
Thank you there, Mr. Masie. Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. That brings us to the end of our show. We would like to thank all our guests, Mr. Tim Muringai of the Triple C, Mr. Masimba Mavaza of ZANU-PF, as well as human rights lawyer, Mr. Kennedy Masie. Thanks also to our listeners and viewers. Good night, Zimbabwe. I am